Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are watching this video lecture. In the earlier sessions, we discussed about the residential status determination for different types of SSCs like individuals, HUF, and companies which have different types of provisions. Particularly for individuals, there is a computational requirement of number of days of stay in India. For HUF also, if HUF is resident, in order to find out whether it is ordinarily resident or not ordinarily resident, computational requirement will be there in relation to the number of days of stay of Karta, not during the previous year but 7 years preceding the previous year, and the residential status of Karta in the 10 years immediately preceding the previous year will have a impact on the residential status of HUF. We discussed about how to determine the residential status of individuals as well as HUF using the provisions of section 6. However, the company's residential status is theoretically straightforward, practically very complicated, but even in reality, an Indian company is automatically a resident. If it is not an Indian company, then the place of effective management of that company has to be checked, and if that POEM is in India, then such company will be called as a resident company even though it is not an Indian company. For an Indian company, there is no need to verify where is the place of effective management. Imagine there is an Indian company where the place of effective management is actually outside India. Doesn't matter, still it will be a resident only. However, if it is not an Indian company, but place of effective management is in India during the previous year, then such company becomes a resident. Whereas, in case of all other SSCs, be it firms, AOP, or BOI, or local authority, or cooperative societies, or any other artificial juridical person, all types of other SSCs have only one thumb rule. If the control and management of its affairs is wholly or partly situated in India, then such entity will be called as resident. If the control and management of its affairs are wholly situated outside India, then such an entity will be called as non-resident. That's it. That is how the residential status of different types of SSCs will be determined. Okay, once we determine the residential status, naturally the question comes, so what? What is the use of this residential status? The use of residential status is basically in the tax incidence, where depending upon the residential status of the SSC, the incidence of tax on any person will be determined. Of course, the residential status determination was in section 6, whereas tax incidence section is 5. Though actually we have to determine the residential status first, then only tax incidence can be determined. Doesn't matter. There is no rule that section numbers have to be sequential for our convenience. Whatever section numbers are there, we have to just remember them as they are. So what is the section for determination of residential status? Section 6. What is the section for determination of tax incidence or incidence of tax? That is section 5. And how this residential status and tax incidence is related with each other, that is what we will understand when we look at the scope of total income concept, which is defined in section 5. And more than the definition and the provisional parts, what is more important here is to understand the logic. If we understand the intention of the law, if we understand the logical thread with which this provision has been weaved, then we can solve any type of question with that logic and common sense. However, That does not mean there are no provisions. There are provisions. But those are all, once again, using very generic words. So we have to be very particular in terms of how to use those generic words in the situation that is given to us as a problem. Before going to that level, how the scope of total income of SSC is determined, that let us understand. The scope of total income of an SSC generally depends upon three important considerations. Of course, one of the most important consideration is residential status of the SSC. So whether a particular income is taxable or not, whether a particular income is included in the total income of an SSC or not, depends upon one factor, that is residential status of the SSC. Very important factor, no doubt. But is it the only factor? No. There are other factors also. Like what? The place of accrual or receipt of income. That is another very important factor. Place of accrual means where the income has been earned. Receipt means receipt, where the income has been received. Is there any compulsion that both should be at same place? Not necessary. But is it important to know where it has actually accrued? Yes. Is it also important to know where the income is actually received? Yes, because both of them, accrual as well as receipt, will have a direct impact on the scope of total income. That is why that is a very important consideration also, in addition to the residential status. This place of accrual or receipt is also an important consideration, but there is one more point to be noted. Whether this accrual or receipt could be actual or sometimes deemed. And this word deemed is a very important word. As I told already about this, what is the importance of this deemed word? This is a very important word in any law, particularly in the income tax law. There are so many provisions where we will have this deemed word used. If a person is deemed to be an SSC, automatically he becomes an SSC. If a particular income is deemed to have been received in India, that means it is received in India. If it is deemed to be accrued in India, that means it is as good as it is accrued in India. So understand this word deemed very carefully. If we understand it, there will not be any confusion. If we don't, unnecessarily every time we'll come up with unnecessary, I would say, complications, which is not required. It's quite simple. It's not complicated by itself. We should not make it complicated with our thought. Why do we make it complicated? With our unnecessary thoughts. Like what? How can deemed be reality? Is a question that we will ask ourselves, which we will never get an answer. Why? Because we are not the ones who has written this law. If the law deems something to be something, it is that. We cannot ask any question why. When the law has deemed anything, we have to just accept that it is as good as original. So understand this in this context. For example, in the context of scope of total income, let us say there is an income, just for understanding, which has been accrued in India, and there is an income which is deemed to be accrued in India. The question is, will there be any difference between them? Answer is no. There will not be any difference between the income which has really accrued in India and the income which has been deemed to be accrued in India. So just because it is deemed to be accrued, our brain gives them second preference. We consider that as a second grade citizens. No. If anything is original and anything is deemed by law, both are same. So we should not say these two are different. They are not. Both are same. Same way, if there is any income which we know that it is received in India, or there is any other income which is deemed to be received in India, will there be any difference? Answer is once again same. No, there is no difference. If it is really received in India or it is deemed to be received in India, both are same. But only point is, if it is received in India or if it is really accrued in India, that becomes a fact. Whereas If it is deemed to be received in India or deemed to be accrued in India, that may not be a fact. It could be by way of a provision of the act. So to put it very simple way, the same example we always have to keep in mind, which is easy to understand, the provision or the word deemed, which we are going to use many times in future also. So this concept of deemed has to be very clear. What is the example we have taken earlier also? For example, there are two animals. One animal is horse, the second animal is donkey. When you see them, you know that one is a horse, one is a donkey. But by virtue of a particular provision of the act, the donkey is deemed to be a horse. Please don't ask me which section, there is no such law. I am taking an example. If at all, by virtue of any provision of any law, if a donkey is deemed to be a horse, we have to consider it as good as a horse. So now if I ask a question, after knowing the law, how many animals are there? You have to tell two animals. And if I ask a second question, which animals are there? You have to tell two horses. Then you cannot say, sir, I know there is actually one horse is there, one donkey is there. That everybody knows, sir. That everybody knows. But when the law said donkey is a horse, it becomes a horse. That is where our resistance of the brain should not be there. That is what I was talking about. Some people unnecessarily confusing themselves. How can it be? How is it possible? How can donkey be a horse? Nobody in the world can answer those questions. Why? Because that is law. The law, if it is deeming a donkey to be a horse, we have to blindly say it is a horse. That is our job. If we really want to question the law, we have to be in the parliament, not in the classrooms. That is the difference. So those whoever the lawmakers are, whatever the lawmakers tell that there is something which is deemed to be something else, naturally that something becomes something else, and there is no difference between that something and something else. So if A is deemed as B, then it becomes B. There is no A anymore. If X is deemed as Y, that becomes Y. There is no X anymore. Forget about X, it becomes Y automatically because the law said so. The law deemed something as something else. So automatically that something becomes such something else. This has to be always kept in mind. That is a logic we have to keep in mind. So when the law deems certain income to have accrued in India, there is no difference between really accrued incomes in India or deemed to be accrued in India. Both are same. Both are taxable. Both are same way treated. No single difference also between anything real and deemed. That clarity should be always there. Same way in this context, if there is any income that is really received in India, or if there is any other income which is deemed to have been received in India, both will be same. There will not be any kind of difference. So irrespective of all of this, if any income is accrued or deemed to have been accrued, received or deemed to have been received, where it has been accrued or where it has been received or where it has been deemed to have been accrued or received, that place of accrual becomes an important aspect in determining the scope of total income, or we can just call it tax incidence. What is tax incidence is simply whether the Income Tax Act of India has purview on such income or not. If it has, then we call it taxable. If it doesn't have, then we call it not taxable. So if it is income which comes within the purview of the Income Tax Act, we can use the word taxable. If it does not fall within the purview of the Income Tax Act by virtue of Section 5, then we would call it non-taxable. And how do we determine whether it falls within the scope of total income according to Income Tax Act or not? That is what is dependent upon these three factors. First factor is residential status. Second factor is place of actual or deemed, accrual or receipt. That is the second factor, which also is an important consideration. And the third factor is the point of time at which the income has been accrued or received by the SSE. Of course, naturally, point of time means that income should have been earned or accrued or received during the previous year. No? Then only it is taxable in the assessment year. If it was accrued, let's say 4 years back, 8 years back, that will not be taxable for this assessment year. So the timing of that earning of income also matters. In general, we don't have to much worry about it. In general, when that point of time will be, when the income would have been accrued to the SSE, or when the income would have been received by the SSE, or somebody on behalf of SSE would have received it or accrued it or earned it, naturally that will be previous year. So it's not a big deal. Just as a point, it is also important. That is the third point. Time point at which the income has been actually earned or received. The third one is, as I said, a normal point which we already know. And whenever something becomes taxable for a particular assessment year, naturally that should have been earned in previous year. There is nothing new in the third point. But very particularly, if we observe, these first 2 points are very important. What is that? First one is residential status of the SSE, and the second one is the place of accrual or receipt, whether actual or deemed. Depending upon these 2 factors, we will have to determine the incidence of tax, whether a particular income is taxable or not. Let us understand how incidence of tax occurs to different types of SSEs. Of course, we have to start our discussion with individuals. And the logic, if you understand for individuals, for all others also it will be more or less the same. But for individuals, it is more important as usual for various reasons. First reason, at C-enter level, our focus is mostly on the individuals. And second reason, individuals is the only place where there is some calculation involved, where there is some little bit of 3 residential statuses are possible. In all other cases, it is all yes or no type. There is no much of, you would say, application, little bit of twists and all, not much. But in reality, it is a different story. All the litigation will be related to other type of SSEs. That will be in the real world. In the academic world, in the bookish world where we live, we don't care much about companies and all that. That will be more or less very evident whether a particular income is taxable or not. We don't need big provisions there. By just observing the facts, we can understand that. But once again, reality is completely different. In reality, individuals is the easiest one, and companies and all are always complicated, and gray areas will lead to litigations which we are not interested. For individuals, yes, we are more interested in what type of incomes are taxable for each type of residential status of individuals. And as we know, the first category of residential status of individuals is resident and ordinarily resident, ROR. What kind of incomes are taxable in the hands of ROR? Subsections you don't need. Just remember, section 6 is determination of residential status. Section 5 is tax incidence. Broad sections are enough. So we are talking about section 5 now. Section 5 tells that the total income of an ROR will include the following. What are those things? Very clear. Income which is received or deemed to be received. Where? In India. When? During the previous year. So if you observe, all the 3 points are covered in this. What is the residential status here? That is ROR. If the residential status is ROR, then only this point is applied. If the income is received in India, that is place of receipt, or deemed to be received in India, that is also deemed to be the place of receipt when timing during the previous year. If that is the case, it is taxable. Taxable in the sense, such incomes will form part of the total income of an SSE. And which type of SSE? Resident and ordinarily resident. Same thing, just continue it. Instead of received, you call it accrued. or you can use the word another thing, accrued or arisen, or accrues or arises. These are the words used by law. Income which is accruing or arising. In simple words, for understanding purposes, earned, accruing, arising, these are all okay. Where from it will arise? It's basically earned. Or deemed to accrue or arise. Both are same. You have to always remember that. Original and deemed are always same. If income is accruing or arising in India, or deemed to accrue or arise in India, where place is in India, when always, this is like during the previous year is always common. Every time we don't have to separately understand that. During the previous year is always common. The timing is always there. So don't worry about it. Any point, income is taxable for an assessment year if it is earned during the previous year. So this point is common in all cases. But what we are talking about, when such an income will be taxable? For ROR, if the income is received or deemed to be received in India, if the income is accrued or deemed to be accrued in India, or income which accrues or arises outside India, means what? Even if it is accrued or arisen outside India, though it is not received or brought into India. So the point is, even if the income accrues or arises outside India also, it is taxable in the hands of resident and ordinarily resident. If you observe, by now, most of you would have identified this all thing is completely turning to one. Means what? Every income is taxable, sir. For a resident and ordinarily resident, there is no way out. Why? Understand this. Income which accrues in India also is taxable. Which accrues outside India also is taxable. Is there anything else beyond this? Naturally nothing. Entire universe is covered. You can earn an income either in India or outside India. Both are taxable. So what is remaining? Nothing. Nothing is remaining. Means what? Conclusion. For a resident and ordinarily resident, global income is taxable. Everything. Everything means everything is taxable. There is a scope of total income for a resident and ordinarily resident which is complete. There is nothing which a resident and ordinarily resident can escape. Every income. He earned in India, taxable. Earned outside India, still taxable. Received in India, taxable. Received outside India, earned also outside India, doesn't matter. Still it is taxable. So, doesn't matter where the income is earned, where the income is accrued. So, the second point here when we talked about place actually becomes irrelevant for ROR. What only becomes relevant for ROR is point of time. When this all income should have been earned. That is during the previous year. That is only the important point. During the previous year, during the previous year, during the previous year. That only matters. Outside India, within India, that is nonsensical to know. If income is earned in India also it is taxable. If the income is earned outside India also it is taxable. Then means everything is taxable. There is nothing that is beyond this. So for ROR, everything is simply taxable. That's what. In a simpler terms, for a resident and ordinary resident has to pay tax on the total income accrued or deemed to accrue, received or deemed to be received in or outside India. What else is there? Everything is covered here. So, resident and ordinary resident will be taxable with every income. No exception here. That is the first point. ROR, everything is taxable. Okay, only point is when such income is received during the previous year or earned during the previous year. That's it. That's what it means. If you look at this sentence, that itself will conclude everything in a nutshell. He has to pay tax on total income, accrued also, deemed to accrue also, received also, deemed to be received also, in India also, outside India also. Done. Everything is taxable for ROR. So we call this, in simpler terms, resident and ordinary resident will have taxability of income What type of income? His entire global income will be taxable. If there is an ROR, imagine he is working in America, but he is ROR. You have to understand. How can person working in America be ROR? These type of questions you cannot ask. His ROR means already he has satisfied the conditions of section 6. Then only he is ROR. He stayed in India for a certain number of days. He has stayed in India for a certain number of days in the past years. All those conditions done. Then only he is ROR. But he's normally working in America. Okay. Some certain days he works there, certain days he works here. He earns some income in America. Imagine, example. Will that income be taxable in India? 100% yes. Because for an ROR, global income is taxable. Entire income, wherever he earns it, in India, outside India, everything is taxable. That's it. That is ROR. Now, coming to RNOR. Actually, for RNOR also, everything is same. There is nothing new here. If income is received in India, definitely it is taxable. Deemed to be received in India, definitely it is taxable. If it accrues or arises in India, definitely it is taxable. Deemed to accrue or arise in India also, it is definitely taxable for RNOR. So, basically, for RNOR, the provisions are more or less same as in the case of ROR. More or less same. But more or less same does not mean same. There is a little bit of difference. What is that difference? Except, very important, for the fact that income accruing or arising to him outside India is not to be included in his total income. Whereas the third point here says income accrues or arises outside India also would be taxable for ROR. For RNOR, if the income is accruing or arising to him outside India, that should not be included in the total income, which means for an ROR, this was taxable. For RNOR, this would be not taxable. Why? Because the income whatever earned or accrued is happening around outside India, not within India. If it accrued in India, taxable. If it is received in India, taxable. If it is accrued outside India but received in India, still taxable. Because one of them is enough. If it is accrued also taxable, received also taxable, but when it will be taxable? Only when it has been either accrued or received within India. What if the income has been earned outside India? Then it will not be taxable. When that too, of course, when it is received also outside India. So if there is any income accruing also outside India, received also outside India, then that has nothing to do with India. Definitely. Person earned income outside India and received also outside India, India cannot tax that. For RNOR, it cannot tax that. For ROR, India has all the power to tax every income that ROR earns. For RNOR, India will not be able to tax such income which accrues also outside India and received also outside India. That is one major exception. And another very important point is there here. However means once again there is an exception to exception we are talking. This is an exception where it is not to be included. Now we are talking another exception to exception. Exception to exception means inclusion. What is that inclusion? Let us understand. Where such income is derived from a business controlled or a profession set up in India. So, if that income is derived from a business controlled or profession set up in India, then it must be included in his total income even though it accrues or arises outside India. So that is the point. So if the income is derived from a business controlled or a profession set up in India, then it must be included in the total income even though it accrues or arises outside India. So normally for RNOR, any income accruing or arising outside India would not be taxable. However, if such accruing or arising is happening outside India, however, that business is controlled from India, then this exception will not apply. Then it is included in the total income, though it is accrued or arising outside India. So basically, the first 2 points will be applicable to ROR also, RNOR also. Only the third point is not applicable for RNOR, but there is an exception to that also. When if income is accruing outside India from a business which is controlled from India, in that case, that income will be still taxable in India, which means it should be included in the total income of the SSE, though it has not been earned in India. Since it has been earned from a business which is controlled, this word is important, which is controlled from India. So if this is the word used in a question, for R and OR you have to be extra cautious. For ROR you don't need to care about at all. Why? For ROR everything is taxable simply. In India, outside India, controlled, not controlled, whatever nonsensical information given, we just don't need to care about it. As long as the income is earned during the previous year, if that is considered, if that is satisfied, automatically every income of ROR will be taxable. So no need to really dig the more details in relation to ROR. It will be very clear and evident. Everything will be taxable for ROR almost. But when it comes to RNOR also, everything will be taxable except when the income is earned and received outside India. That is the only case where RNOR's income is not taxable. But there is an exception to that also. If the income is earned also or received also outside India, but still that business is controlled from India, in that case, we will still include that income in the total income of RNOR. Clear? That is about scope of total income for RNOR. Now coming to non-resident. Non-resident will have only first 2 points repeated, nothing new. What are those 2 points? Income received or deemed to be received in India. Second point, income accrues or arises or deemed to accrue or arise in India. Nothing new. So the first 2 points are there, applicable for ROR also, RNOR also, and NR also. For all the 3 people, common points are first 2 points. Which are those? Income which has been either received in India or deemed to be received in India. Income which has accrued in India or deemed to have been accrued in India. All of them are taxable for non-resident. But what about the income if it has accrued outside India and received also outside India? For a non-resident, it will not be taxable. For RNOR also it was not taxable. How can it be taxable for non-resident? Non-resident is completely a person who is almost not in our purview. He is not a resident of India. Generally, Indian Income Tax Act should not have any purview on them. But still we are taking purview. How are we taking purview? When we are taking purview, in these 2 conditions. When the income is received or deemed to be received in India, because it is received or deemed to be received in India, we are telling that boss, you pay income tax in India because you earned it here or you received it here. Second case, same. Income which has been earned in India, which we call technically accrues or arises in India, or deemed to accrue or arise in India. In that case also, non-resident also will have to pay tax in India. That income also will be included in the total income of non-resident only when these 2 conditions are satisfied. Any of them are satisfied. Either it is received or deemed to be received in India, or if it is accrued or deemed to accrue in India, or both. Both are also possible. Both happened. Accrued also in India, received also in India. Of course, still it becomes taxable in India. Imagine accrued outside India, but received in India, still taxable. Imagine accrued in India, but received outside India, still taxable. So any of them makes such income taxable in the hands of non-resident, also RNOR, also ROR. However, only difference if you observe, for ROR, even if the income arises outside India also, it becomes taxable. For RNOR also it becomes taxable, but only when that income is earned from a business which is controlled from India. Otherwise, for RNOR, normally income earned outside India, received outside India will not be taxable. Only exception is if that business is controlled from India. Otherwise, RNOR will have only these 2 as taxable. Non-resident will definitely have taxability only from the first two conditions, like when the income is received or deemed to be received, accrued or deemed to have been accrued in India during the previous year, then any income earned by a non-resident would be taxable. Clear? That is a point to be noted. And as a conclusion, there has been some additional points given. You can just understand that all SSEs, whether resident or not, all SSEs, whether resident or not, shall be chargeable to tax in respect of their income accrued, arisen, received, deemed to accrue, deemed to arise, or deemed to be received in India. So the moment we see the word India, whether it is received in India, whether it is accrued in India, deemed to be received in India, deemed to be accrued in India, all SSEs will have taxability of such incomes. That's it. However, only residents will be chargeable to tax in respect of incomes which accrue or arise outside India. That too, of course, not all residents. ROR definitely yes. RNOR subject to a condition if that business is controlled from India. But for residents only, any income which has been earned outside India also can be included in the total income of such person. For a non-resident, for example, take this example. Non-resident earned income outside India, received income outside India, business controlled from India. Can we say it is taxable? No, because in the provision there is nowhere such kind of control or something has been asked for to be checked. That control and all only where has to be checked. Whenever in the question there is a word control, just don't worry about that word when you are thinking about ROR or when you are thinking about NR. The word controlled from India is only and only to be useful when that SSE is RNOR. Unnecessary information will be given. We should be careful in not using it unnecessarily. We have to use it if required, otherwise no. So the word controlled from India is a completely useless information for ROR, because irrespective of whether a business is controlled in India, earned in India, income earned outside India, income received in India, income received outside India, for ROR there is nothing to check. Everything is taxable. For NR, it will be taxable only and only if income is either received in India or earned in India. Only India. Then only for non-resident income will be taxable. If any income is earned outside India and received outside India, it will not be taxable for non-resident, even though such business is controlled from India. Still that doesn't matter for non-resident. So when that becomes taxable, when that will be included in the total income, if such business is controlled from India, only and only for resident, but not ordinarily resident. So be very clear. This is where a lot of times people mess the things up in the questions while solving the questions. Be very clear on that. When the word controlled from India is given, don't even worry about it when you are thinking about ROR's taxability. Don't even think about it when you are thinking about non-residents taxability. In both cases, that is completely irrelevant. Only for RNOR, only for that type of SSE, this controlled from India will be relevant. Otherwise, that point itself is useless for other types of SSEs. Be very clear on that. Okay. Now there is a circular clarification and all that. That is one of the useless circulars. Don't need to worry about that much. But just generally remember this, because the topic has come, because this probably would have been clarified because of certain unnecessary harassments of assessing officers without knowing the common sense background of things. Irrespective of all that, it is not going to the realities. Simply sticking to the circular, any income by way of salary received by a non-resident seafarer. Seafarer means, once again, the one who is a member of crew of a ship. And what kind of ship that is? If it is a foreign going ship where his services are rendered where outside India, and doesn't matter whether with Indian flag or foreign flag, means every case, received into NRE bank account. So this is a point here to be noted. When there is a bank account called NRE bank account, that is called a non-resident external bank account, Of course, maintained with an Indian bank. Don't think Indian bank company. No, not that Indian bank, Andhra bank, Bank of Baroda. Those are all not there. So it's not about the name of the bank. A bank which is an Indian bank, not that kid, the brand of Indian bank, not State Bank like that. Any bank which is registered with RBI in India is an Indian bank. So if this person, whoever this guy, and who is this guy? Non-resident. See, first of all, he is non-resident and he is not going to stay in India. Why? Because he is a seafarer. Basically, he doesn't stay at one place. And that too, where is he going? He is going on a foreign going ship. That too, what happened? Where is rendering services outside India? If these many things are there, common sense wise, you tell me whether any income by way of salary received by him, should that be taxable in India? Is there any possibility? Common sense also tells it shall not be included. Shall not be included in the total income means not taxable, sir. Not taxable. As simple as that. For many reasons, it is not taxable. Why? Because he is a non-resident. Services are rendered outside India. That too on a foreign going ship. And it doesn't matter whether Indian flag or foreign flag, there are only two possibilities. That too received in NRE account. Understand this NRE account little carefully. Non-resident external account is a kind of bank account wherein deposits can only be made from outside India. For example, if somebody has an NRE account, they cannot make any deposit into that account in India. So automatically amount will be earned and received actually outside India only. But a bank account might be maintained in India. So probably, I don't know, probably some stupid assessing officer would have thought just because the bank account is Indian, this income also is taxable. Naturally, that is absolute rubbish. It is not taxable. We don't need a circular for that. It is very unfortunate that we needed a circular for such type of obvious things. Sometimes it happens that even it is written on the wall, some people try to complicate the things. There will be different characters naturally. And it becomes the duty of the CBDT to give such kind of circulars so that nobody is harassed with this. So simply speaking, you can remember this way also. Any amount which is deposited into NRE bank account, forget about seafarer, non-resident and all. See, NRE bank accounts are that. NRE bank accounts are basically not possible to be maintained if you are a resident. NRE bank accounts are only possible to be owned and maintained by non-residents. So, if somebody has an NRE bank account, he is a non-resident by default. And where he will earn the income? Outside India by default. That is quite natural. So, with all these facts, in general, any deposit in NRE bank account is not at all taxable. That is not considered as an income that is earned in India. It is earned outside India, received also outside India. Though the bank account is maintained with an Indian bank. That doesn't matter. So, a lot of Indian banks have branches outside India. So, straight away, somebody can open an NRE account, say for example in London, and whatever the income or salary that they earn in London, they can deposit into that NRE account. Does it mean that income is earned in India just because they deposited into an account of an Indian bank? Nonsense. That is not going to be like that. It is not earned in India. It is earned outside India, received also outside India, and that person is a non-resident. So in all possible cases, everything in this case is telling that it is not possible to be taxed, not possible to be taxed, and that's what even CBDT told, where this income is not included in the total income of SSE. So don't worry about this much. If at all any kind of possibility of asking it as a question is there, that could be only for MCQ, nothing else. Now, even if it is given as a one of the points in the big question, the kind of details themselves will tell us everything is hinting us to be not taxing it, non-resident, outside India services rendered, that to foreign going ship. Basically, only possibility of having some link with India is what? That guy unfortunately had a bank account with an Indian bank, that to an NRE account. Just because of that, we cannot make it taxable in India. Hence, it is not taxable in India. Simple. Right? So forget about that. Don't give too much of focus on that. That's very clear thing. Logic, if you understand, that's enough. No, that's not even a legal provision. It's only a circular. Now, coming to the summary of whatever the provisions what we have dealt with so far, what is the scope of total income in case of different types of residential statuses of SSEs? This table is going to be your guiding factor for all the problems that we are going to solve in future in this chapter. So this chapter 5 marks question is compulsory, guaranteed. In that part of the question could be determination of residential status, which generally will be only for 1 mark or 2 marks maximum. 1 mark generally. Remaining 4 marks will be for this. So determination of residential status is only a small part. The real application of these provisions is what is going to fetch us marks, right? And if this table is remembered well, if this table is understood well, we can say any problem we can solve. Though there are some more litigation points, details, we will encounter them, but that is not going to matter much. Majorly the problems can be solved with this table's understanding. In general, that is enough. So read and understand this table very, very carefully. Clear? So what is the first category we are talking about? And we are talking about 3 different residential statuses: ROR, RNOR and NR. First category, we know this already. Just a repetition, it's a summary of what we discussed already. Income received in India or deemed to be received in India during the previous year. Is it taxable for ROR? Yes, sir. RNOR? Yes. NR? Yes. When, if it is received in India or deemed to be received in India, either way. Received, deemed to be received, both are same. There is no difference in the eyes of law. Then it is taxable in all cases, simply speaking. Then we have income accruing or arising. Accruing or arising or deemed to accrue or arise in India. Then also it is taxable in all cases. These are, if you remember, the first 2 points we were talking about. In all the 3 cases, first 2 points were these 2 only. Income received or deemed to be received in India. Income accrued or deemed to have accrued or arisen in India during the previous year. That is also taxable for everybody. Whether it is ROR, RNOR, NR, doesn't matter. It is taxable in all cases. Now, only point is the third one. Third one we have to check separately one by one. Income accruing or arising outside India during the previous year. Of course, here we have to also keep in mind as a condition, it is received also outside India. Why? If it is received in India, it would have already fallen in this. No, we don't need to check this. So here, when it is received in India, enough to be taxed. We don't need to care where it has accrued. If it is received in India or deemed to be received in India, it is automatically going to be taxed irrespective of the place of accrual. Same way, if it is accrued or arisen or deemed to accrue or arisen in India, irrespective of the place of receipt, it is taxable. So, a receipt is one part, accrual is another part. Any one of them is enough. Both are not required to be in India. If both are in India, of course, anyway it is taxable. If one of them is there in India, also enough to be taxable. What if both are outside India? Both are means what? Accrual also happens outside India and receipt also happens outside India. Then what? Then for ROR, of course, it is always taxable for ROR, even if that is not received, even if it is not brought into India during the previous year, doesn't matter. Still it is taxable because it is earned. The moment it is earned, it is taxable. Once again, you have to keep in mind and refer to the features of income in the first chapter. Is there any compulsion that for an income to be taxed to be received? Not necessarily. Income is taxable on a receipt basis also, accrual basis also, as the case may be. There is no need that income has to be really received. Even if it is accrued also, it is enough. In this case, even if it is accrued outside India also, still it is taxable in the case of ROR. However, in case of RNOR also it is taxable, but only when if such income is derived from a business controlled in or a profession set up in India. Otherwise, no. Yes, only when. Yes, like or when. Only if that business, this word, again I am drawing your attention, controlled from India, business controlled from India. In that case, definitely that income will be taxable, though it is earned and received outside India. For whom? For RNOR. For RNOR only, this controlled word is important. If not means what? Income earned outside India, received outside India, and it is not controlled from India also. Then no, nothing is taxable for RNOR. For non-resident, anyway nothing is taxable if income is received also outside India and accrued also outside India. This is the table you have to always remember. So simply, once again to summarize, if any income is received or deemed to be received in India, this is taxable in all cases. Everybody will be subject to taxability. If the income is accrued in India or deemed to have accrued in India, then also it is taxable in all cases. If the income is earned also outside India, received also outside India, then for ROR it is taxable. For NR it is not taxable directly, but only where we have to check little bit more information for RNOR. Then you have to further check, okay boss, income accrued outside India, received also outside India, but where from the business is controlled? Is it controlled from India or controlled from outside India? If it is controlled from outside India, no, then there is nothing taxable. But if it is controlled within India or from India, then that becomes taxable for RNOR also. That is the summary of all the provisions in relation to section 5, that is scope of total income. That's it. With these provisions, we can almost be able to solve many questions in relation to computation of income of different types of SSCs with different residential statuses, ROR, RNOR and NR. However, there are certain other things also to be noted, which will also be part of our general discussion, because we used the word received. Anyway is okay, that does not need explanation. What do you mean by deemed to be received? We will discuss that in the next discussion, next session. Same way, what do you mean by income accruing or arising in India, or what do you mean by the income deemed to accrue or arise in India? That also has to be understood very clearly. But instead of going through all those details, this summary of section 9 subsection 1 will be enough for understanding what are all the incomes which are deemed to accrue or arise in India. We will discuss that in the next session. But once again, I am just giving you an understanding of what is going to be more important in relation to solving of problems is that table only. All remaining things are additional things. A lot of items are there. We are going to discuss them. What is business connection and all that. Most of that is only useful for theoretical and conceptual understanding. That's it. Not really for problem solving. Problem solving, what we know already is more than enough. All the remaining topics that we have here, there will be so many items that these litigations, huge, I would say gray areas are there. Almost all of these things are not going to be that important in problem solving. So what we will do in the coming sessions is that we'll quickly glance through them rather than going line by line or point by point. That will not be required. We'll just have to have a general understanding of various aspects. So as a chapter where we can solve the questions, the provisions that we have learned so far are enough. Still, whatever the remaining things are there in this chapter, mostly those are all additional things which will be only required for a broader understanding purposes rather than in-depth understanding or in-depth analysis, because there is nothing that we can do by really knowing the in-depth of it. Why? since all those things are only possible to be applied in real life, not in problems. That differentiation always we should have. Certain provisions are possible to be used in problems, like what we have. This table is going to be directly used in problems. Certain provisions are not going to be used in problems, like, for example, place of effective management. What will you compute? How can you compute? Is there anything that you can compute place of effective management? Not possible. Is there any way that you can compute business connection that we discuss in future? Not possible. So there is no computation there. There is no particular problem solving involved in that. So those areas, what we will do? We just understand, okay boss, there is something called place of effective management. What is it? Okay, it is the place where key commercial and management decisions are taken in essence as a whole. Okay, that's fine. If place of effective management is in India, for even a company which is not an Indian company, that can become a resident. That's all. Beyond that, we don't have to worry. But as I told, place of effective management is the multi-thousand crore litigation that runs in the Supreme Court. So it's not a small thing, it's a huge thing in real life. It is just after all a definition for us. We just take it light. That's how it is. Always the reality and problems in the examinations need not match. Same way, the remaining things, deemed to accrue or arise in India, accrue or arise in India, we don't need to really go through them into the depth of them. Just to understand the essence of that. What is the intention? What was the intention of the law? If you understand that at a broader level, that is enough. That will be more than enough to solve the case-based questions also. Problems though anyway, it's going to be more or less straightforward. Simply, it is all about, do we have the ability to identify whether an income is earned in India or not? That is a word we use for understanding. But what the law uses, income has accrued in India, arisen in India, or deemed to have accrued in India, deemed to have arisen in India. These things the law will go into details of that. We just need to know them, but not all of them will be applied in the problems. I would generally say the problem solving will majorly depend upon that table of section 5, the scope of total income, and most importantly, common sense. That also is an important ingredient for problem solving in any chapter. But particularly so, this residential status and tax incidence also, right? So once again, as usual, read these provisions very thoroughly, remember them, write them, and I would also suggest you can draw that small table as a revision 3-4 times so that you will remember what are the incomes which are taxable in all cases, what are the incomes which are taxable for only ROR and RNOR, and when, in which circumstances, which is not taxable for non-resident. All that essence of section 5 has to be very keenly observed, understood, and remembered. Remaining things, they will just come and go, which we will anyway discuss in the coming sessions, right? And once we discuss those things also, then we can move on to the problems, because problem solving is altogether a different exercise. Knowing, understanding, remembering, interpreting the provisions is one part, applying them is another part. So we'll come to the problem solving part after discussing some more provisions in relation to the words that we have used. We only used the words, we never actually elaborated them. What do you mean by received in India? What do you mean by deemed to be received in India? What do you mean by accrued in India? What do you mean by deemed to be accruing in India? All those words we have to little bit elaborate and understand at a broader level, which we'll do in the next session. Till then, take care. Bye bye. Thank you very much.